Godox has always made great radio controllers. What makes a great radio controller? Well, number one is reliability. And honestly, Godox pretty much nailed this very early on. Their controllers have been reliable for years. Number two is user experience. And with each model Godox releases, they just continue to get better and easier to use. Now, with this new model, the Godox X3Pro, they've combined everything they've learned over the years and packed it into this nice touchscreen display. Let's find out if this is a worthy upgrade. Let's unbox the Godox X3Pro. So we just have this flip box here, and inside you have the X3Pro just sitting on the top of this foam. Now, if you pop that guy out, there are a couple more things in the box. Just remove this foam, and then you have this skinny little box inside. Now, I don't know why Godox did not include like a hard case like it does with the smaller X3, but in this one, they just give you this little bag, which I guess is nice, but it doesn't provide any actual impact protection really. So you get that guy, and then you get the USB-C charging cable here. Now it is USB-A on the one end, so just be aware of that. But any cable you have laying around will also charge it. And here's the manual. Now this will require a microscope to read any of this, but don't worry, we are going to go over absolutely everything that is contained in that manual. Let's talk about the physical features of the X3 Pro. You'll see the big display here. This is a color display. You can put 4 groups right on the screen so you can easily control multiple groups. We also have the dial here. Now, I know a lot of you aren't sold on the touchscreen thing. You're not quite sure if you should make the jump to it. Well, this dial is actually so nice. It allows you to navigate those menus really easily. It's actually a button as well, so you can click it. So if you just want to gradually get into the whole touchscreen thing, feel free to use the dial. I actually like using this dial even in combination with the touchscreen sometimes. So you have the best of both worlds there, dial or the full touchscreen. This middle button right here is the power button. So if you hold that for 3 seconds, it will power the controller on. And if you push it again, it's going to go into the menu. So that would be if you're using the dial. Otherwise, you'll just pull down from the top of the screen and that would access the menu. Down here, we have the test button, this little lightning bolt here. Just push that, it's going to test fire your lights. And then over on the other side, we have a 2.5mm PC port here, so you can plug this in if you need to. We also have our charging port here, which is our USB-C that comes with the cable. That's where you charge this. Godox says that this standby time on the controller for the battery is 1 month. And from using this, I believe them. I haven't tested it for a full month yet. But if you're worried about battery, the bigger size of this controller allowed Godox to put a big battery in here, and this thing just lasts forever. So you're not gonna have to worry about this dying on a shoot. And even if you did, you can charge this to full in under 2 hours just by plugging it in with the USB here. It's also very easy to connect onto the hot shoe of your camera. You just have the quick release button here. So slide it in, and then to get it off, you just push the button and pull it out. No more wheels or kind of clumsy locks to deal with. Really nice to get it onto any camera system that you might be using. One more feature that they added right here is the focus assist beam. Now I know a lot of you are going to be using mirrorless, so this really isn't that applicable to you, but for those of you still using DSLRs and you want this to project a focus pattern to help you focus in low light, it's still here and you can still use it. Just be aware if you're using mirrorless, this probably isn't going to apply to you, but it's nice that they still added it. You do have a little bit of weight onto it just because of the increased battery, and you do get a good size in this controller. You know, with that nice screen, being able to see everything really well. I think they did a really good job on this. I think it's perfect proportion. The dial's really nice to use, and that integrated battery is going to be a lifesaver. Here's just a quick comparison of a couple of the popular controllers that you're probably considering along with the X3 Pro. Now, The first one you're going to think about is the X3 because it is a touchscreen as well. Now you can see the physical size difference here, and I would say that's the biggest deciding factor when choosing between these two. If you're shooting a mirrorless, small-bodied camera, and you just want to be really inconspicuous with your controller, then the X3 is a great option. You can see the physical size here. I know we're getting glare off the lights, but it's quite a bit smaller. Now you are going to be missing a number of features on the X3 that the X3 Pro has, including Bluetooth, which you can connect to your phone and easily control it that way. But if you want that bigger screen, then definitely the X3 Pro is the way to go. Now, what about the X Pro 2? This is the latest model in the X Pro series, which has dedicated buttons for everything, a larger screen here, and is actually quite full-featured for a non-touchscreen model. So if you're considering this guy, this has everything. It's just really the touchscreen that is going to be the difference, and the integrated battery. I know a lot of you just prefer, for peace of mind, to have AA batteries in here, which that's going to give you, versus the integrated battery. But I hate to say it, this is probably going to last longer than any battery that you can put in here. A month of standby time, you're not going to have to worry anymore about running out of battery. This thing is just going to go and go forever with that integrated battery. So if you still like the physical button here, just being able to push and control your groups that way, then definitely go with the X Pro 2. If you want to go into the future here, the X3 Pro is probably the one that you want to consider. Okay, let's power on the X3 Pro. We do that by holding the middle button over on the right-hand side for 2 seconds, and it is going to boot up really quick. The first thing you're going to want to do when you power up is set the channel on your controller and your lights to be the same. So to access that menu, we pull down from the top and then click wireless. So in here we have 32 default channels. I would recommend changing this from 21. That's the default of all the Godox lights now. And also stay away from channel 1 because the older Godox lights were defaulted to 1. I'll leave it on 21, but you can select any channel there that you want. And if you want to select the best channel, you have a scan feature here. So if you click that scan, it's going to take a whole 30 seconds here. It's pinging the radar. Actually, no, that's not actually anything, but it is searching for the best channel with the least amount of interference right now. So this can be really useful if you go into an event center, a school, something where there's a lot of wireless interference, because there are slight possibilities that you pick a channel that is being interrupted by some other piece of equipment. So this just allows you to select the best one, and you can see whatever number you want there. You can just select it and it's going to automatically set it there. I'll leave it on 21 for now, but just make sure that you turn that off of 21. Now ID is kind of a sub channel. Normally it's not needed, but if you want to make extra sure that you're never going to have any interference, you could select an ID from 1 to 99. The reason why I don't often do that is because people forget about this a lot of the time. So they'll have an ID set in there and they go to their strobe and they just match the channel but completely forget about the ID. Well, Godox has thought about that too now, and we now have a sync function. So this is only going to be useful for some of the newer controllers, so like the X3, the X3 Pro here, and you also have to have a compatible light. So a lot of the new speed lights like the V1 Pro, V100, as well as the new strobes, 8200 Pro 2, 402, 602, those will all have this, and anything coming out now basically has this by default. So let's just set an ID to show you how this sync feature works. I'll just select any random one here. So we're channel 21, ID 26, and then I'm going to hit the sync button. Now this is sending out a signal to any lights that are compatible. As soon as they connect, the controller is going to push the channel and the ID over to it. So I have an 8200 Pro version 2 here, which has this feature. If I go into the menu, go to wireless, and then down to wireless sync, you can see I'm on channel 13 there. But when I click wireless sync, instantly the settings on the controller are pushed over here. We have channel 21 and ID 26. So that's just a really quick way where I can take all of my lights, just go into wireless sync, click it, and the controller just sends that automatically. Now I do have to go to cancel here, and that's going to turn that off. And now I am ready to go back out, channel 21, ready to go. So that's just a quick way to set that. You can do it manually. If you have older lights, you will have to do it manually. Or if you have some of the newer equipment, you can use the wireless sync mode. If you want to see where you access the wireless settings on your specific light, just go into the product page on our website, and we probably have that video up there for you as well. Now, I want to talk about groups. If you're new to the whole flash triggering system, groups can be individual lights, or it can be, as the name says, a group of lights. So I could put 20 lights on group A if I wanted, or I could just have one. The reason you're going to use other groups is maybe you have a key light on A, and you have a fill light on B, and something else on C. You can put multiple lights on those. Just remember, they're all going to be controlled with the same output if they are in the same group. So one of the nice things that we can do on this controller, because we have the extra real estate, is we can actually display 4 groups at the same time, something you can't do on the X3. To do that, we just hit this little icon menu down there, and we can enable all the different groups that we want. One of the things that you're going to see is that these are color-coded. So some of the new strobes, like any of the Pro 2 series, like the 200 Pro 2, 400, 600, they all have a little RGB indicator which matches up to the color that you see here. It just gives you a visual indication of what light you're looking at. Now you'll notice that the screen keeps dimming out there. After 10 seconds it will dim, but I have this not to turn off until 3 minutes. So you'll just see that it kind of dims out and then goes back if you don't touch anything here. So if I go back into that menu, we can just scroll up here. We now have those 4 groups displayed, but I want to talk about something specific. We are using the Nikon controller here, and this applies to Nikon and Sony. You'll see down here this little note that says groups A to C are for TTL, and then the rest are going to be manual. Other brands like Canon, Olympus, Panasonic, Fuji, they will actually have the D and E groups for TTL as well. This is just a little different between the Nikon and Sony versions, just something to keep aware of if you're going to use TTL. One other menu thing I just want to show you right there. At the bottom, if you don't want those RGB lights to display differently, you can click that little color wheel here, and now you see they're all the same. So that's just something that you can disable if you don't want to. Just turn it off. If we enable more groups and go back out of the menu here, you'll see you just scroll down and then you can see them all. I'm just going to display, let's just go and turn off those 3 and just leave them on. So you can see what I'm doing with the menu there. To access that menu, I can just click right here and then just swipe to the right to get rid of it. There's also another hidden menu at the top. If you need to access it, you pull down, and that's where we see all the custom functions and a number of different modes, which we'll go over in a minute. Just a quick note about the wheel on the side. This wheel is really nice, as I've discussed before. It's easy to rotate through the different groups and get very precise control. It's also a button, so I just click it in, and then I can rotate this. It clicks into third stops really easily. We can adjust that into 10th if we want to as well. If you just leave it there, it's going to automatically lock in, or we can actually push that again, and then it's going to go out into the main menu there, and we can just scroll wherever we want. Now, that's great. This is a touchscreen, so I am going to use the stylus to control it as a touchscreen here. Now, in its most basic mode of controlling a light here, we have our groups and then our power levels. So if we're just going to use manual mode, I can just click the plus minus on the screen here, and I can control the power of that group. Right now we're limited to 1256. I'll show you how to set that lower in a minute if you want to go down to 512, if you have some of the more current Godox lights. So I can also drag this as well. So I can just click it and then drag it back and forth to adjust the power level as well. Not quite as precise. It does kind of click into those and it will lock like that. But you can just tap or do the drag thing. One other thing on the bottom here is that we can control all of the groups at the same time. This is used to maintain your ratios. So if you want to take a stop off every group and they're all at different power levels, rather than going to each one individually and clicking it down, I can just lower that down. But you're gonna see what happens when I hit the bottom. I can't go lower anymore because I've already gone to -2 stops, and that's as low as that light is going to go. So you'll be limited depending where the power level is set for your lights. And again, same thing, I can go on the plus side. That one got to full power on A, so I can't add any more exposure compensation onto that light. So just something really quick that you can do if you need it. Nice to be able to control all of them. And yeah, just go back and forth. You can also drag there on the bottom as well. Just make sure you keep it at 0 if you don't want to add that. Now that's all of the groups on the main menu, but what if you want to have a closer look at a specific group? Well, all you do is just go and click that group and it's going to zoom in there. So we still have our plus and minus control where we can easily click, or we can just drag again in there. You get a little bit bigger display. But inside of each specific group, we can actually go and we're going to have our zoom control. And we'll also have our modeling lamp control down here. And I can actually turn this group off there. And under the M, I can actually change that from manual to TTL, which we'll discuss in a second. And just show you what it looks like when you turn that group off. Now, when you go back to the menu, group A is off. Now I can actually reactivate it there if I just hold that down. It's a little tricky with the stylus, but you see after like 2 seconds, it turns it back on. I can do the same thing to just turn a group off on the main menu. Just hold, and that's going to turn it off. One other neat thing that you can do in the zoomed in view is you can actually swipe up and down to go to the next group. So you see I'm in B there, and then in C. So that'll just continue on to however many groups you have enabled. But that's just a quick way. You got to be careful. I'm using the stylus here that you don't like drag that menu, but you can go between your groups there. So that's kind of interesting to do that. Now the zoom here, if you're using a speed light, this is where this would come into play. You have manual zoom settings here, so I could click and just zoom into whatever one I want to. That's the little kind of Fresnel head in the front of your speed light that you see move in and out. It makes that kind of buzzing sound as you go. Here we have auto. This isn't that useful if you're using your speed lights off camera because it's trying to match the field of view of your lens with where your camera is pointed. So that can be a little bit problematic. If you're using them off camera, out or inside of a modifier, usually you want to go wide as possible. So you'd pick something like 24 millimeters. But if you're trying to do something specific where you have like a bare speed light and you're trying to bounce it off a ceiling or really project that, you might want to use something more zoomed in, like 200 millimeters there. So it's really pushing the light as far as possible. But whatever you choose there, the nice thing is that you do have the option. It gives you big selectable numbers there, so it's easy to see as well. Another nice thing about that zoom feature in the X3 Pro is that it is individual control. A lot of the previous controllers were only a global setting that would apply to all of the lights. So now we can go in and just individually control those, so you can really fine tune that to how you want it. The next setting we have is our modeling lamp control. We can set this to 3 different settings. We have off, we have percentage, and then we have proportional. So percentage is just a manual setting. So if you go in there, you do it on the bottom here. So we can enable this on different groups. Now this multi is not independent light settings. This just turns it on for that group. So this multi setting is going to apply to any group that is enabled there. You can't go and individually change that for each one because it would be sending the pulse out to fire all the flashes at crazy different intervals. So that's just a limitation of this mode, but you'd probably never use it that way anyway. So same thing, we can drag plus, minus, and then if you're using multi, that's how you set that up. To get back out, you can just pull down and then you can turn multi off, because otherwise you're going to be locked into that mode. So let's get back into the top menu by dragging down. We've talked about wireless, multi, and the modeling lamp. Here's the beep. So if you want an audible beep when your flash recycles, then you would just turn it on here. And this is a master control for all of those lights. You would just turn on and off right there. I usually leave that off. The Godox lights now are so fast that it's almost annoying that it's just constantly beeping as they recycle. So your personal preference, but I like that turned off. Next, we have high-speed sync. So we are using a Nikon controller here, and this is a little bit different than some of the other ones, like Canon, for example. In Canon, we can actually, right from here, we can go into rear curtain, first curtain, or high-speed sync. With Nikon, you're going to enable this in the actual camera menu. So if you wanted to go to rear curtain sync, just set it in the camera menu. The controller is fully compatible with that. It's just you can't access that here. It's a limitation of the actual Nikon system. But if you have Canon, just be aware that you can set that. High-speed sync, depending on the camera model, will automatically turn on if you go over the native shutter speed, which is normally either 1/200th or 1/250th of a second. But if your camera doesn't automatically push you into high-speed sync here, then just manually go in and turn that on. Next, we have the lock. If you click this, that will lock the screen, so we have no access to control everything. You'll see the little lock in the top left, and I can't drag anything there. I have to hold for 2 seconds to unlock that. So if you don't want someone messing with your settings, maybe you're at, I don't know, you're doing an instructional thing and you have people shooting with your controller and you want the settings locked in there, that could be a good option to prevent those from being changed all the time for you. Next is our AF Assist button here. When we turn that on, we have enabled the AF Assist beam to project out of the front of the controller here. And that will project a little grid pattern that helps you focus in low light. Now, this is only applicable for DSLR cameras. There are no mirrorless cameras that I know of that can actually take advantage of this. But for those of you who are using SLRs still, then this is a great little feature to have there. But if you're not going to use that camera, just make sure you turn that off. So we're going to get into shutter control a little bit later, but this X3 Pro actually functions as a remote shutter release as well. This is a whole little sub thing, which I'll show you in a couple minutes, so you can skip to that if you are interested in that. Now you do need to disable that here to get back to our main menu. And now we're going to go through all these little sub settings in this menu at the top. So these have sometimes been called the custom functions in other controllers, and these are the ones that will occasionally change depending on the firmware version. So along the line through the years, Godox is going to release updates. You can get those on the Strobepro website, or you can download them on the Godox website directly. But you can see your current firmware, just 1.03. So this is the very first firmware for this device, but that may change a little bit. And depending on your camera brand, this could change a little bit as well. So the first one here is Bluetooth. So we actually have Bluetooth enabled, so you can use this controller with the Godox app. So just download it in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, and you can download that and do a whole bunch of different things here. We just need to make sure that we enable Bluetooth if we're going to use that. If you ever get stuck and you need to reset it, you can just hit the reset here. That will reset the Bluetooth. If you can't get it connected, that's a good place to start. You can see the MAC address here, so when it pops up in your phone, you know what you're connecting to. If you're not going to use Bluetooth, I'd recommend leaving it off. It just uses more battery if you have it on. So if you'd like to use Bluetooth, be sure to check out our dedicated video to the Godox Flash app. It might be a little bit outdated. We try to keep it updated as much as possible, but it will at least get you started. Next, we have the shoot mode here. Now, by default, you're going to want to leave this in one shoot if you're shooting by yourself. Essentially, the controller can be broken down into two functions. One is sending the actual fire signal, and the other is sending the power signal. So at one shoot, it's just sending the fire signal until you actually make a change on the controller. So when you're by yourself, leave it in this mode. Now, if you're shooting a wedding, for example, and you have multiple shooters adjusting the flashes in real time, you can go to all shoot. The difference here is that it's sending the fire signal and the power signal at the same time. Now, there is a trade-off to this mode, and that is that it consumes more battery because it's constantly sending both of those signals. So the benefit of this mode when you're shooting with multiple people is that when they look at their controller and see a power level, they are going to get that power level when they fire the light. So it's constantly sending both of those signals, so you don't have to worry, is my light going to output that power? If you fire it, you're going to have that. So again, the downfall is the battery life. So if you are shooting by yourself, make sure that you leave that in one shot. So the last mode we have is the L858 mode. Now this is a collaboration with Sekonic. So if you happen to have that meter, it is a high-end meter, and you also need the optional Godox module. So essentially what you can do with that meter and this mode is the meter will solely be responsible for adjusting the power of the lights directly, which essentially turns the controller, the X3Pro here, just into a dummy controller, which is only responsible for firing the lights. So you make all your adjustments with the 858, and then the actual trigger is going to send the firing signal. So this can also be useful if you want to make all of your adjustments directly on the lights themselves. You could go into this mode and just use the shutter to fire it that way. But more often than not, you would just use this with the 858, and you can purchase that separately at Strobepro. Next, we have Legacy Hot Shoe. A lot of you will be happy that this is still enabled here. So each X3 Pro is camera brand specific. So I have Nikon here. You can get Sony, Olympus, Panasonic, Fuji, Canon, and they all use specific pin allocations on the bottom to control TTL. What Legacy Hot Shoe does, and when you enable it, is it turns those TTL pins off and just enables the center firing pin. So that means you could take this controller to an old camera. Doesn't have to be a Nikon brand. I could take this Nikon and put it on a Canon in legacy mode, and it would still send the firing. So that's really nice because if you have the TTL pins enabled and you take a Nikon over to a Canon, it wouldn't work. But this way I can put this essentially on any old camera body, an old film body if I wanted, and it's still going to send the firing signal through that. So just make sure you don't accidentally leave that one turned on. Otherwise, you're going to have no TTL and no high-speed sync. Next, we have auto off. So don't be confused. This timer does not start while you're using the controller. This is designed if you forget to turn off your controller and throw it in your bag, then the countdown timer starts after your last input. So it's not going to turn off while you're using this. So we have 30, 60, and 90 minutes. So you throw this in your bag after a shoot, you forget about it. It will completely power down the controller after one of those set times. So I would recommend leaving it on. You can turn it off up at the top there, but this controller will last up to a month in standby. So hopefully you don't forget about it and you just come up and the battery's dead. So keep that enabled to prevent that. Next, we have trigger distance, which is quite important. By default, it's in 1 to 100 meters. So if you're shooting outside, leave it in this mode. It's designed for wide open spaces, for long distances. That will prevent any misfires there. But in the studio, I usually recommend going 0 to 30 meters. This just allows you to bring the lights closer to the trigger. With any radio communication, you need some distance between the transmitter and the receiver. but this allows you to bring those lights really close to the controller without getting misfires. So 0 to 30 inside and 1 to 100 outside is what I would recommend for that. Next we have step. This is also important to set. Now this is light specific. So if you have any of the new Pro lights, like an AD400 Pro 2, for example, those lights will go down to 1.512. So you would want to set that to enable your minimum power. So if I go up here right now, we had it, or previously we had it set to 1.256. Now I've changed it to 512, and I can actually take advantage of that full low range on that specific light. Now just be aware, if you have different lights that you're mixing in, that those lights might not go down to 512. They might be stuck at 1/32, or maybe some of them are 1/128. Now this is a group setting, so it applies to all of them. You can't just set specific groups to different low-end powers. So just set whatever it is, your lowest light, I would say. So if it's 512, set it there. If it's 256, set it there. And the other thing that we can actually do in that step mode is, we can set the actual steps. So 0 to 3 is third stops, or we can go to 1/10 stops. I usually like to leave that in third stops. I don't find I need the accuracy of 1/10 stops, and it just takes way longer. So you can see I'm clicking through. I got to click 10 times to get through there versus the third stops. With the touchscreen, I mean, it's obviously not that important, but are you really going to sit there and try to dial in 0.1 of a stop? Probably not, but you can if you want to there. One other thing in that step mode, this is the fractional scale, so 1/128, 1/256, or 1/512, but we do actually have the option to go into a numbered scale. So just to show you real quick here, now everything has changed to this scale. If you've used Pro Photo lights in the past, or some basically older lights, they used to use this scale. A lot of manufacturers have gotten away from that. But if you want to control your stops this way in the numbered scale, you can set it to do that. If you're just getting started out, don't do that. It's going to be really confusing and much harder to understand for you. So I would recommend, again, 1/512 here if we need it, and third stops. Next we have TCM. What this does is, in TTL mode, if you take a shot, it will convert that power level into a manual power level. So it's a quick way of seeing what that level is to make easy adjustments. Now this is best used if you are using all of the same light, so all speed lights of the same kind, or all strobes of the same kind, or just a single light. So basically what you would want to do is set the power level of the strobe that you're using. So let's say it's a 400, an AD400 Pro here. We would set that to 400. We would go into our group, turn it to TTL. We take our shot and we just hit this manual, and it's going to show you the power level of the shot that you just took. So that's just an easy way. It resets each time you take that TTL power level reading. So TCM is still there for those of you that use that, and it can be a useful feature. Just make sure that if you are not going to use it, that you disable that, because it could be annoying having to have that switch every single time. Next, we have HSS Delay, and I'm going to be honest with you, we have researched this and we're in contact with Godox. There's limited information in the manual, so we're not sure 100% what this is for, other than the fact that we think it is to introduce millisecond delays to fix triggering issues in electronic shutters. So some of the new cameras coming out, you know, there's the Sonys with global shutters, and like the Z8, Z9, have full electronic shutters. That could be to fix some issues with triggering delay, but we will find out more on that. But at the time of recording, it still is a little unclear. But just make sure you leave that to off. Very few, if any of you, are going to need to use that. Next, we have the preset menu system. And if you have a set studio that you're always shooting at, maybe you have one at your house and one at the office or something, and those lights are constantly set, you can go in and save things to a preset. So let's just say, let's change this just to something else that's 1/1. Now we're going to go into preset right here and save that in preset 1. Click save. You can see it's highlighted, indicating that we have something saved in preset 1. And if we go back, let's change something else here. And we'll change this to whatever. Now we're going to load that preset back in. So go into preset. We're going to click preset 1, and we're going to apply that. Now when we go back into the menu here, you see everything has gone back to where we set it. This is going to include all your channels, your groups, your power levels, all put back with that preset load. So there's a whole bunch of them there that you can choose from. You're probably not going to use them all, but maybe you've got 1 or 2 that you want to set there. You do have the option for 8, and if you want to replace that or just get rid of it, you can just click delete, and it is defaulted back to empty. Next, we have screen, and we can set the screen to turn off after a certain amount of time. By default, it's on 15 seconds. Now, it doesn't completely turn the controller off. It just dims the screen, and the screen will go dark. So if I just leave that, when that's off, you're going to see a little blinking light that constantly blinks every half second on there, just to let you know that the controller is still on. But the screen is turned off just to save battery. So you can see the light there. Now it's blinking. To wake it back up, we just click anywhere, or if you click the test button or anything else on the side, it would also wake it up. We have the brightness level here. The screen is very easy to see, which is nice. But if you want to adjust that brightness just a little bit, you can easily fine-tune that by clicking the bright button or just dragging it across there. We have our language, English or Chinese. When you first turn on your controller, it's going to show like this. Just select English. If you mess something up in here and you cannot figure out what the heck you did, just go to reset here. It's not going to reset the firmware. It will just reset all of these menu settings that we've gone through back to default, so you can get yourself out of a bind. And then the last thing here, we have device info. It's telling me that's the X3Pro Nikon, and the firmware version is 1.03. So currently, those are all of the custom functions in here. Now, occasionally Godox will add those as the years and months go by here, but generally they stay pretty similar to what they are here. So you may have some slight changes along the way, but you can always check with us if you have any questions on that. Okay, the last mode I want to show you, you can access by pulling down and going into shutter control. This is the shutter release intervalometer here. And for this to work, you need to have the 2.5 mil cable that goes from here in the controller to the front of your camera. And every camera is different. Now, if you do pick up the optional XR receiver in either Canon or Nikon, they do come with a number of cables in there, so your specific camera might have that cable, which comes in that, and you can actually use that piece as the release by starting this whole thing that we're going to talk about. So you might want to grab the cable in that set. They're pretty inexpensive. So if I go in here, the first thing is our delay. So this is the delay before we set off this whole sequence of events. So if you've set this up on a tripod, you need time to walk away from the tripod, you would just put your delay in here. So in each of these menus, we have hours, minutes, and seconds. So if you want a 30-second delay before that starts, you would just dial it in there, 30 seconds, 16, whatever it is, click yes. Now this is going to count down before it starts processing here. Now long, you only do this really if you're going to be shooting in bulb mode. So if you're shooting lightning, for example, and you want like a minute exposure, then you can go in and set that actually in the minute hand right there, bring that back to 0. if you're shooting in just one shot, you don't need to set anything here, just leave it on 0. You can also set this for like continuous high. If you want your continuous high to fire off, you could set this for like 3 or 5 seconds, match it to whatever your continuous is set to in your camera, but make sure you don't like accidentally set this to an hour or something, because if you start it and walk away from your camera, it's just going to continuously burst for an hour. So just be careful in this long setting here that you don't accidentally set that if you don't need it. So just to remind you, this long mode here is normally used just for bulb, but if you are using it for continuous shutter, just make sure you don't accidentally set that for an hour or something, because you're either going to need a new shutter or your memory card is going to completely fill up there. So under interval here, we can go down, and this is basically the time between shots. So if I want to take a shot every 1 minute, then I would set that to 1 minute there. And this is the number of shots. So I can choose however many shots I want. I want to take 5 shots every minute. You can also switch over here to infinite. So I could essentially just...
Okay.
Next, let's set our number of shots under N1. So if I set this to 4 shots, click yes. Now what this is, it's going to take 4 shots with a minute between each shot. So I can set that to whatever I want. I can sequence that out to be a lot longer if I'm going to take a time lapse, if I want to leave it on a job site and, you know, take a shot of a construction build going up. You could even do that if you wanted to. You have tons of shots there. But we also have this other setting that we can go to infinite. So this just gives an infinite number of shots until that memory card is essentially full. So if I don't want to come back and check what this is doing, you know, in 6 hours, I just set it to infinite. It's going to continue to go until my card is full or perhaps my battery dies. So probably not leaving it on there. I would recommend, you know, usually it's going to be limited in some way, but you can set whatever you want in there. So interval 2 is kind of a subset of that. It's a little bit confusing, but basically we've set that up. We're taking 5 shots a minute apart between each shot. I can resequence this in interval 2. Let's say I want to add, actually let's go into minutes here. In 2 minutes and 37 seconds, I want to repeat this sequence. And I want to repeat that sequence of 5 shots with a minute between them. I want to resequence that, let's say, 7 times. So it's kind of just repeating our first set of data that we put in there, that 5 shots with a minute between each. That's going to repeat that whole sequence every 2 minutes and 37 seconds, 7 times. So I know it's a little confusing to understand that, but you probably don't need to use that N2 all that much. So you could just leave that one to off and just stick with your N1 to get started in this. Once you get a little bit more comfortable with it, you can start playing around with the interval 2. Okay guys, I know that's confusing, but just to give a quick recap. So we've got our 15-second delay. So when I click start here, the controller is going to count down 15 seconds before it starts our sequence here. And what that sequence is we're going to take 5 shots with 1 minute between each shot. And then after we've done those 5 shots, we're going to have a cool down period for our camera essentially of 2 minutes and 37 seconds. And then it's going to repeat that whole sequence of 5 shots with 1 minute between each shot. It's going to repeat that 8 different times. So the only thing that's not getting repeated is the delay countdown. That's a one-time thing that only happens at the start. So once we count that down, it's not going to do that. We've set the whole thing in motion. It's just going to continue on the instructions that we gave it. So if I click start here, you can see that it's already counting down. Once this starts, you'll see the screen change a little bit here. I shouldn't have set this so long. I'll wait till it counts down. You can see the light went on there. And now it shows you what process it's on. It's counting down that interval, then it's going to take the next shot. You saw it already took one right when it started. Continue to count down, and that highlighted area will just go down to the N2 once we finish these shots. So that's everything you need to know about the Godox X3Pro controller. You've got the huge touchscreen here, which is great if you don't like fiddling around on the smaller screen like the X3. You've got this tactile wheel that they've really perfected here. You feel the little stops in it, really easy to use. And the fact that Godox has taken basically every feature they've ever put into a controller and actually added a few more makes this really unbeatable in terms of features. Now, if you're just getting into the Godox X series, then you definitely want to put this on your short list. If you're looking to upgrade, this makes a compelling argument with just the features alone, and the price really isn't that much more than the other top-of-the-line controllers in the lineup. We know you can purchase Godox from a number of different retailers, but when you buy with Strobepro, you're getting our exclusive in-house warranty, where we're going to take care of you if you ever have issues with this. If you have technical questions or run into any issues, we're just a phone call or email away, so please don't hesitate to reach out. So if you found this guide helpful, please like and subscribe. It really helps us out. And even more, if you're looking for this controller, please consider picking it up from Strobepro. Until next time, enjoy creating.